Welcome back to Luxury Cruising. I'm your host, Krystal Sodaitis, and today I have the privilege of having one of the OG cruise podcasters on today. We have the man, the myth, the legend, Matt Hochberg. Matt, please tell the listeners anything you want them to know about you.
Crystal, welcome. I like long walks on the beach, coffee, ice cream, and I think You've Got Mail is probably the best rom-com I've seen ever, I'm gonna say. The American President's pretty good, maybe 1A, but in between all those things, I run RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, where we focus on Royal Caribbean cruises, and love being able to share the cruising experience. And I think obviously we're going to be talking about a different cruise I took. Hey, delves a little different from Royal Caribbean, but it was my first time on a luxury cruise.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about Matt's experience on Silversea, but there's a tie-in because Silversea is owned by Royal Caribbean, so it's all in the family.
Absolutely. And that's really what drew me to it, quite frankly, Crystal, because, as you might be able to tell, I'm a big Royal Caribbean fan. And, I would say to some extent, but probably true is that, I was a very loyal to Royal. That's really a big thing for me. But in the last couple of years, I have felt like this is a really good time to try other lines. I tried celebrity cruises for a couple times over the last couple of years as well. And Silver Sea is by extension because not only are they owned by Royal Caribbean, but some of the new status matching that was introduced, I think enabled me to feel like I can step out a little bit without really stepping out, if that makes sense.
Agree. And I think so too. I'm also very loyal to Royal. I've expanded into celebrity a couple of times. And I think especially the more recent, like the first iteration of the status match was just okay. But now that it's really a one-to-one tier match, I think that that's really made a big difference. So before we get to the actual ship, since we are talking about status matching, what was the status match on Silversea?
For Silversea, you get so they do it. It's funny they do status matching, but every line has a completely different approach to it. But the Venetian Society, you get the equivalent of I forget how many nights it is or points, but you get the top tier thing, which on the surface is great because when I went to Celebrity, it was like, wow, it was really eye opening the perks you could get. On Silversea, it's not as eye opening because well, number one, like a lot more is included in the cruise fare. So, like if you think about the things that Royal Caribbean Celebrity included in a cruise fare, these are basics that are included with a luxury cruise. Free drinks, dining, discounts, things of that nature. They're all are included already. The biggest thing was the free laundry, which was a really nice perk that I got because I didn't realize that laundry was not complimentary on Silversea, but I got it for free. So that was like I was actually in Europe already for about 4 weeks prior to this cruise on a couple other cruises. So to say that I was dependent on laundry would be an understatement. So that was a wonderfully welcome perk. The other big thing, I didn't get to take advantage of it this time, but you also get a 10 to 15% discount on your fare, which is pretty significant when you're talking about a luxury line and the price that comes with it. So while maybe we don't have a laundry list of amazing perks that you get for being at the top, I did feel like the ones that you did get were pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think that's valid. Okay, so let's get to the cruise. And tell us what made you decide on whether it was this ship, this itinerary. What was the
Yeah.
background?
So that's a great question. Silversea offers a lot of itineraries and amazing cruises. I was a little handicapped in my choice in a couple of senses. First of all, I still have kids that are in school. So like a 14, 21 night cruise is not going to happen. There's no way that would work scheduling wise. But pretty quickly early on, I realized this was going to be a solo cruise also. And in the interest of making sure my family still welcomed me back with open arms when I got back, I also wanted a somewhat shorter sailing, but I also did not want to do a conventional sailing. Um, I was working with Silversea on the cruise and they were suggesting there's one out of Barbados. And I was like, well, I really don't want to go to the Caribbean because I feel like if you're going to do like a luxury cruise, you want to go to these amazing places you just simply cannot go to with Royal Caribbean as an example. So I knew I wanted something probably in Europe and I was already going to be in Europe because I was doing some European cruises with Royal Caribbean. So I tried to basically find like a week-long cruise-ish that would be right around the same time so I could save myself a flight over to Europe. And I landed on Silver Dawn, 7 nights out of Copenhagen, went to the Norwegian fjords and began in Copenhagen, ended in Bergen, Norway, so an open jaw sailing. And I was really intrigued by this because not only would it allow me to experience the luxury cruise, but I would have just completed a 7-night Norwegian fjords cruise on Independence of the Seas. So this would be a really good compare and contrast. Not quite apples to apples, it'll never be that, but about as close as you could get. So it seemed like a really good fit.
Yeah, and we can get to a little bit to the port stops later on, but just in general, were you able to get into maybe some smaller and more exclusive ports because of the size of the ship?
2 of them for sure. Vik and Nordfjord absolutely were definitely the case. The other 2 ports, Trondheim and Alesund, are actually ports. Well, Alesund we were supposed to go to on Independence, but it got canceled because of propulsion issues. So that was a bigger ship port. I didn't actually, fact check that they could or could not get in there, but I'm assuming at the very least 2 of them were definitely ports that you can only get into with a smaller ship.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of the smaller luxury lines is they can get into these ports that a big ship because Independence is probably going to have 2 to 3,000 people on board.
Oh, no, Independence has 4,000 passengers
Yeah.
on board. So, yeah, it's a big ship. Maybe not icon of the seas big, but still pretty darn large. And what I really we'll get into this obviously, but the places your ship can get is just the beginning. There's a lot more of a difference, really, for going to a luxury line. And this really surprised me, especially considering I had done Celebrity. I really felt like there was a very noticeable difference in the onboard experience from mainstream or premium lines to luxury.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, when you first get on the ship, what did you think?
So, to be fair, I had actually done, I didn't tell anybody, but I did a day tour of Silver Ray when she was in Fort Lauderdale. So that was when they brought me on board just to simply walk around the ship. I didn't sail and walked around eating the buffet. And I was like, wow, that's their newest ship. Silver Dawn is still a new ship. It came out in, I believe, 2022. So it's the same age as Odyssey of the Seas, Wonder of the Seas, that age. So brand new ship still, but it's not their newest class. Nonetheless, I was number one really impressed by the layout of the ship. I mean, obviously, it doesn't have an atrium or a promenade or that. That's probably the most noticeable thing, I guess I don't say missing, but notable difference when you walk on board a luxury ship. If you're used to big ships, is usually on big ships, you're walking into these cavernous halls like, oh my God, I can't believe this is all on a cruise. And then you get on Silver Dawn and it feels more like a hotel lobby than that experience. Again, different, bad. Just that was probably the most notable thing that struck me within the first you know, 10 minutes of being on board the ship.
Yeah. So is it more like walking into that entry hall of a hotel as opposed to the giant promenade or like you say the Pearl on Icon?
I think so. I think walking into a nice hotel is pretty much the best way I can describe it. I mean, it was really interesting to me. I'm so conditioned, Crystal, for like when you get to the cruise boarding experience. I'm so conditioned for like, I got to get there early. I got to beat the crowd. I got to get on board and I got to do this. And first of all, there's no online check. You just show up. Second of all, there's no cruise in. This is in Copenhagen. So there's no cruise terminal. It's a tent, but there's no line. There was one person with me there and I got a noon check-in time. So it was like, that noon is like, oh my God, that's super late. But,
Like you're
but
going to be in the mass of people getting in line on this
yeah,
ship and there was nobody.
exactly. No, really easy. Like it was like the first sign, like, Matt, you're not in Kansas anymore, but also you don't need to worry as much anymore. Like this is like, take it back a notch, pull it back a little bit. And that was kind of really, again, boarding the ship. And this is a theme for most of the cruise where I was like, I would say this like in a positive way. Where is everybody? Where are the people? It is strange not running into, I don't say crowds, but just people in general.
Yeah. Awesome. And was the decor like classic luxury or more understated? How was the decor?
I would say it's very contemporary, modern-ish. I mean, if you've been on Celebrity, I would say that the decor looks a lot more like Celebrity than it does Royal Caribbean. It's those, browns, muted tones, it's beiges. It's not in your face. It's not gonna be like, zany by any means. But because this is a ship that came out in 2022, I would definitely categorize it as a very modern, uh, but subdued modern motif. And I felt like, again, it probably felt like a boutique hotel in a lot of ways in
Yeah.
terms of the
Yeah.
decor.
Awesome. Awesome. And how about the stateroom? What was that like?
So that was interesting. So I've done, giant suites on Royal Caribbean and on Silver Dawn. All the rooms are obviously suites, so there are no interior rooms or anything like that. Size wise, it was very nice size. I mean, obviously I was there by myself, so definitely overkill for just myself. But even if I was sharing with my wife, what I loved was that first of all, the bathroom is huge. I had the basic suite. I didn't get anything super duper on there, but lots of space in the bathroom. There's a walk-in closet. There's ample space in the living area where the couch is and whatnot. Balcony was a decent size. I actually probably thought for a suite on Royal Caribbean it'd be a smaller balcony, but for this one it was fine. And again, it's just made two chairs, a table there, but lots of space to spread out. Certainly, you don't feel constricted. And again, going back to the hotel metaphor, I felt like it was a lot like being in a hotel room. And certainly, I was just in Copenhagen, and Europe is notorious for small
Yeah.
hotels, and this was much bigger than that.
Yeah. Awesome. Any like amenities within the room that stood out?
Great question. So obviously, there's a shower and a tub, and that's a nice distinction. Not having them together in one, which is usually what you find in a lot of the entry level suites on Royal Caribbean. Separate, lots of space over there. The walk-in closet is huge. I feel like that's a really nice thing to have because not only do you have places to put your clothing, but it really does feel like separate from the rest of it. Um, Other than that, I don't think there's anything that really jumped out beyond that. But I think the bathroom and the walk-in closet were truly probably the nicest amenities that I'm not used to having in suites on other ships, short of having like what level suites that cost tens
Yeah.
of thousands of dollars.
As a woman, for us, a lot of times the bath products are important. Did
Yeah.
you notice anything in terms of the bath products?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna give you the typical man answer here. The butler brought me. He's like, "Oh, we have all these selection of fine toiletries," and I'm like, "Well, first of all, I brought my own, but second of all, I would say it's meaningless to me." But I was like, "Thank you," but I think I'm okay with whatever the stock stuff is because I was using my own stuff anyway. But yes, there was a wide selection. I can't speak to what they were because it was new to me. But it was interesting. That was one of the perks of Silversea is that they not only have in the suite whatever they have, the usual stuff, but then they also have an assortment of other toiletries that you could choose from if you'd like to.
Awesome. Awesome. So that's a good segue to ask about the butler.
Yep.
And one of the things that comes up periodically, people ask me is, many luxury lines and even contemporary lines that have some of the higher suites offer a butler. But Royal Caribbean is the only line that has a Royal Genie. And people wonder, and I think I know, but I know also now that you've experienced both the butler and the genie,
Mhm.
can you compare and contrast the two?
Yeah, absolutely. So the butler I was really excited for initially. I would say my experience was a little more tempered, but they're similar, but they're not. The butler basically is there, and this makes sense. If you had a butler in your house, your butler works in your house. The butler doesn't help you when you're at Home Depot, as an example. I don't know, metaphor. Basically, the butler's powers for the service they provide are only in your room. And that was kind of an interesting change. Whereas the genie, you could be at the bar, you could be at the show, they're there to work with you throughout. That's one difference. Another difference is that with the genie, you can use WhatsApp to be able to message them. Whereas the butler, you cannot. You have to physically pick up your phone in your cabin and call them. The butler has hours they're not working in the afternoon, whereas theoretically the genie is 24 hours, but they have operational hours as well. I feel like they have um, a little more leeway in terms of bringing things and opening things up to you. Like as an example, on Icon of the Seas, we got to meet and hang out with the chief dog officer, Rover, because the genie was able to arrange that. The great thing about the butler is if the basically you have to live in your room, and the more you live in your room, the more useful the butler is because they can do things like pack and unpack for you, which the genie would never do. And that was an amazing perk. The
Nice.
butler will draw a bath for you, which the genie can't do for sure. Both of them, though, did things like surprise you with little things within the room. Like my butler brought me, I asked for raspberries once. I had raspberries for the rest of the cruise. When I got back from a very long shore excursion, the bath was drawn for me with music in the bathroom because he thought maybe I'd like a break. One night there was popcorn in my room because he thought maybe I'd want to have just watch some movies or something like that. So like little thoughtful things, and the genie does similar things with them. So They're similar, but I feel like the Genie's powers extend beyond the room, whereas the Butler truly is in the room. And one other thing I just thought about, the Butler on Silver Dawn, I shared with 13 other cabins, so 14 total, whereas the Genie is 3 or 4 suites you're sharing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's really helpful. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
What other aspects of the service stood out for you on Silversea compared to, let's say, Celebrity or Royal?
The crew members on every cruise ship, every cruise line are fantastic. Silversea was on a completely different level. I was amazed, and I've seen a lot of crew members interact with a lot of some of them. Krystal knew my name without me ever introducing myself or giving them my card, and I still to this day do have no idea how they knew who I was already. Like, but it was incredible the level of service. I mean, every ship has certain crew members that are superstars and they really recognize them. This had a lot more. I think it just really has to do with the lower staff to guest ratio. That must be the case. So there's less of us to keep track of, thus they're able to do so. And that was probably the most eye-opening difference. Was like, wow. Uh, I mean, it's like Cheers. Everyone knew my name everywhere I walked on the ship after like 2 days. It was like, hey, Mr. Matt, good to see you again. Um, it was like, hey,
I thought, like,
hi.
do I know you? Like, okay.
Yeah, I felt bad because I didn't know their name, but it was truly the most incredible aspect of the trip comparing that to some of the other lines.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's segue to the food.
Mhm.
What were the dining options on Silversea?
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting. So Silversea is all inclusive, but there's like 3 tiers of restaurants. There is the standard included restaurants, like they have a main dining room, they have a buffet. That's like tier 1. Then they have the specialty restaurants that are still included in your cruise fare that you can go to, like Silver Note, which is the jazz club. And then they have truly specialty restaurants that cost extra, and you can book that make reservations, and that's like and Kiseki, which is the Japanese restaurant. Um, all of them require reservations, except for the main dining room. You can simply roll into without a reservation. You can make one. But anyway, the bottom line is it's kind of interesting. But anyway, food quality fantastic. I mean, listen, it's a luxury cruise. I expected the food to be much better. Where it really stood out to me was a couple places. One is the buffet. I mean, they had a sushi lineup for lunch every day in the buffet. That was like, I mean, it was fantastic. I love sushi. I ate way too much sushi on this cruise because it was included and it was there for lunch, and I absolutely loved it. They have cooking stations, which Royal Caribbean and Celebrity have, where somewhere in the buffet or a restaurant, there's like a chef who will cook things custom. Cool. The difference is the level of. I mean, this comes out looking like a gourmet dish instead of like here's a plate of stir fry, which by the way, I love plate of stir fry. But this was like, wow, that looks,
It's
like
pretty. It's not just like
yeah,
throw it on your, it's like it's done here, throw it on your plate. It actually is presented.
yes, 100%. La Dame was probably the most like over the top, like, I mean, this is classic French cooking, foie gras, that type of stuff there. And obviously the quality is fantastic. Even the main dining room, what really struck me was that the menu is ginormous. There is like filet mignon, lobster, ribeye, like there's like 3 cuts of steaks on the standby menu. And then you still have the main menu plus I mean, I was really impressed by the food. I expected to be impressed by the food, but I still think it even may have exceeded my expectations because once again, it was enormous. One other thing I wanted to share, a quick story. After our first port visit in Vik, Norway, the captain was like, he was also Norwegian, to be fair, but he's like, oh, I grew up over here. I know this farmer. Long story short, he bought like a bushel or whatever, 120 bushels of raspberries and we had or strawberries, excuse me, strawberries. And he brought them, and when they were available, like for everybody on the cruise, for like it lasted about 5 days or so. So in the buffet, every day there was a little bushel of strawberries that were fresh.
Fresh grown Norwegian strawberries.
Yeah. To say that would never happen on Royal Caribbean would be a like people's heads would turn around 360 degrees if you even
Yeah.
suggested that as an idea. So that was like something again completely different and unexpected, but wonderful.
Yeah. And that's what brings people back. And that's what inspires people to spend that amount of money on an experience because of these
Yeah.
small things. And I love also that what I've learned, talking to people about luxury cruising is more and more often they locally source the food.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anyone's ever bought like a bushel
Of
of
course.
strawberries from their farmer best friend, but still they locally source the food and it has
Yeah.
to be fresher.
Yeah, and also the other thing I should mention, Silversea, beyond the strawberry story, they have salt, sea and land tasting is what that stands for. And there's a restaurant, a bar, and a lab. And all three source things from the itinerary you're on. So in the bar, there was aquavit, which is the local Norwegian liquor over there. There's a salt restaurant in which they serve food from Norway. I did the salt lab where I made venison and raspberry tarts, which is a Norwegian dish. So it's really cool that you have that because again, that's not something that you'll ever find on the mainstream lines. I mean, you're lucky if you get like a local beer, let alone
Yeah.
food. Again, a really nice touch. I think a really smart program as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. So, from the excursion standpoint, and you don't have to go through every port, but did anything stand out in terms of an excursion? And let me back up by asking, did you do any Silver Sea excursions or did you do mostly on your own?
No, I booked Silversea excursions for every port except for Trondheim because it was a big city and I just didn't feel like I needed one. And I also should have said this much earlier in the podcast. Silversea invited me to go on this cruise, so they paid for all these experiences. So full disclosure, and this includes the shore excursions as well. So yes, I did do every port except for every port except for Trondheim.
And did anything stand out different from a Silver Sea excursion experience from a royal or celebrity
I
excursion
mean,
experience?
I guess that's a really good question. I feel like the core experience is still there. And I got to be honest with you, I don't love cruise line excursions because there's a lot of hurry up and wait. They move at a slow pace. I don't say I regret it, but I question why I did this in the first place. 'Cause I could've done it on my own. Anyway, I digress. Was I felt like the nice thing about the excursions that Silversea offered were number one, you're in port longer, so they were able to offer some excursions that went like really far out there. And granted, that was probably a really long bus ride, but still they had those options that were there. And I think also by extension, because there's less people, like 590 something people on our ship, the tours themselves, the groups were smaller than you might find on a royal one. That was a really nice touch as well. I did a train tour. I did a fjords boat tour. These are not super unique to a luxury line, but the nice thing about a luxury line again is just that I feel like slightly smaller groups that you might find on a contemporary line, which was a nice thing. It makes it a little bit easier, especially corralling people and getting people on a bus and ready to go and whatnot. So
Yeah, totally, totally. So before we move away from this particular cruise, is there anything else that you would want people to know about Silversea as a luxury line?
I felt like one of the big things was like, who is Silversea for? Like, who does this appeal to, right? And number one, luxury lines don't mean they're extremely expensive. Now, obviously, it depends on the itinerary. It depends if you're doing, time of year, all those factors, any cruise. But I felt like, for a lot of people, if you're already booking a, I would say like for Royal Caribbean, like a grand suite or owner's suite, like the entry level suites, if you're spending about for your family about $8 to $10,000, you're in the ballpark for these luxury cruises. And by the way, when you're spending $8 to $10,000 on a suite in Royal Caribbean, that's not all inclusive, obviously, whereas this one is. I'm never going to tell you that Silversea is a fantastic value from a like money or something like that, but I did feel like the value standpoint was better than I expected, especially for this particular sailing, because again, the price was not insane. It wasn't like I think some people assume, oh, luxury it's got to be tens of thousands of dollars. But that's really not the case. And going back to what you said earlier, Crystal, the other thing is people who are graduating from temporary lines. You started out cruising Royal Caribbean or Celebrity, and you're looking for something different. Maybe your kids are now older and they're out of the house, or you're not cruising with them anymore. Maybe you're looking for something beyond like going to the Eastern or Western Caribbean and the same old ports all the time. Maybe you're looking for more of a culinary experience that goes well beyond what these lines. This is when this kind of a conversation to have a luxury liner really, I think, becomes far more apparent.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you for talking about the value. It is definitely something that I learned from you. And actually, as we're recording this at the end of July, I believe the podcast that's going to drop the first week in August is about the value of luxury cruising. So I will link that in the show notes if anybody's interested in listening to that one.
Awesome.
So let's step back from this particular cruise. And I always ask my guests, How do you define luxury?
I think I look for luxury as certainly more of a personalized service. I think sometimes we think of luxury as like gold finishes to everything, almost like a Versailles type approach to cruising. I don't think it's really quite that. I look at it as primarily just the level of service that's provided is far more personalized, and you're competing with a lot less people. It's more of a first class on an airplane. You're getting there at the same time as everybody else. The difference is the way you're doing it, and I feel like that's what luxury cruising is certainly all about.
Yeah, awesome. Did this cruise meet that expectation or definition for you?
Yeah, I mean, again, the crew members alone would have done that. The lack of crowds would have done that. I'll say this: when I went to Celebrity and tried them, I felt like, they offered it's more akin to a Royal Caribbean cruise than not. I feel like there's just some tweaks, a different approach. Silversea was truly a departure. I mean, lines, crowds, what's included, level of dining, service from start to finish. It's about as different as you can get while still being a ocean going cruise and still retaining, I think, some of the core, cruise experiences. But it really was a significant departure than what I expected, which is not a bad thing. It really didn't meet, I felt it rose to that level of like, yeah, this is different and this is truly luxury, not like, luxury from a marketing standpoint. Like I really felt like it met that bar of,
Yeah.
of expectations.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm sure you have many cruises booked in for the next 12 to 18 months. Is there
Of course.
one in particular that stands out to you as either being particularly luxurious or one that you're looking forward to?
Oh, I'll bring this back to something you asked me about earlier about the Royal Genie. I think we have maybe 1 or 2 cruises on Star Class, which have the Royal Genie service. Anytime we have any of those, Crystal, that's always like a yes. I don't care if we're going to New Jersey. That's gonna be an amazing cruise. Like, I believe we booked one for my wife's birthday. Only, a 4-nighter on Utopia, but hey, why not, right?
Yeah. And
And
when you're in Florida and you could do a four-nighter and you can splurge on, a Royal Genie, then why not?
yeah, and just like Silversea, like I talked about the pricing, there are crazy prices out there, but if you're open and flexible to your dates, you can find reasonably priced rooms. I say reasonable, not cheap, not inexpensive, just less expensive than normal. And if you take advantage of those, then it's really the sweet spot for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So last question, what is your dream cruise?
Oh man. It's funny. I would tell you this answer probably would have changed couple months ago, I'm sure. I really think my dream cruise has less to do with where we're going as much as who's going with me. And I really want to do, I think my dream cruise would truly be a cruise in which I get to bring my family, my sisters, my parents, obviously my family, my wife, my kids, and maybe some friends as well. So we kind of like, not huge cruise, we're not talking like 100 people, but like, be surround myself with the people that I love and do something together. And then also like the Royal Genie experience together. So we can all do that. That would be an amazing, like, let's share in that. That's more important to me to see the smiles on everybody's faces and experience it together than like, giving you a bucket list. Like I'd like to go to this place, which I wouldn't mind going to this place. But I feel like at this point in my life, that's kind of where I look at my dream cruise.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much. Tell people once again where they can follow you, all of your amazing, not just Royal Caribbean, but all things cruising, because you have two sites.
That's right. Yeah. So RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com and cruise.blog. Those are the 2 sites that we have. And of course, if you go to RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, you have all the information there. And Cruise Blog, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, so you can find us all on there. But the YouTube and the website are obviously the 2 biggest components that we love doing. It's a lot of fun. So hopefully you'll be able to get some benefit as well. Because a lot of the information, even if you're not a Royal Caribbean super fan, doesn't matter. A lot of the information truly is universal because it's just, cruising stuff that just applies to many lines beyond even just Royal Caribbean.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have learned a ton over the last probably decade of following you. So I so appreciate it. I
Wonderful.
so appreciate you being here. Thank you all for listening. And until next time, I wish you safe and luxurious cruising.